why the 2020s are the last Chinese decade. 2022 was not a good year for China. For the first time in 60 years, its population shrank. China lost around 850,000 people in 12 months. The country now has a population of 1.412 billion. It's no longer the most populous. India has overtaken China with 1.417 billion inhabitants as of 2023. This may not seem like a big deal, but it's just another symptom of China's inevitable demise. Geopolitical analyst Peter Zion says it will happen within a few years. Here's why. In the 20th century, China underwent rapid industrialization. It crammed 200 years of growth into 40 years. The results were astonishing. Productivity boomed, and living standards skyrocketed. Such rapid growth, however, can only happen once. Then it has to be sustained, and that's where problems begin. A replacement birth rate is 2.1 children per woman. China slipped below that in the 1990s. Birth rates in Beijing and Shanghai are now the lowest in the world. China's labor force and overall population peaked in the 2010s. The country saw the fastest increases in labor costs ever. China's population is expected to have by 2050. This presents a huge problem. Since 1970, China's population has increased by 600 million, but most of it wasn't from new births. Rather, it was due to longer lifespans and fewer deaths. China is the fastest aging population in human history. The Chinese economy is the very opposite of self-sustaining. Beijing imports the vast majority of its energy. Its agricultural sector depends on imports as well. International trade is the only thing keeping China afloat, and it might collapse at any moment. Take finance, for example. The Chinese economy is still much smaller than the US economy, yet China keeps expanding its yuan supply. Each month, it increased by a factor of 2 to 5 times more than the US dollar. The supply of yuan has increased by more than 800% since 2007. The dollar is the store of value for the world. The Chinese yuan is a store of value for no one. Even the Chinese Communist Party stores wealth in US government bonds. They are held outside of China. This makes the current economic model inflexible. China's financial system is not based on consumption or even exports. It is based solely on lending. In 2020, China's new lending was 40% of its GDP. The total outstanding corporate debt has reached 350% of GDP. It's the largest credit boom in human history. Of course, the US is also dependent on global links. But it has NAFTA, a trade bloc that also includes Canada and Mexico. It's roughly 1/3 of the global economy. NAFTA makes the US largely self-sufficient. Meanwhile, Chinese labor costs have increased 14-fold since 2000. China has not advanced technologically in the last 15 years. Xi Jinping has revived the cult of personality and nationalism. This also doesn't help. No one dares bring any unpleasant facts to his attention. Finally, China is completely reliant on the US Navy to access global trade, according to Zion.
If the same sanctions that were placed on Russia were placed on China, there would be a famine that would kill 500 million people in under a year, in addition to an industrialization collapse.
Unlike Russia, China doesn't produce enough oil or gas. In addition, it's already facing a healthcare crisis. Will it simply collapse?